first. Let's see if we can see the price. You get one-time shot. I want to say it was 150. No, 515,000. Holy, woo! That is expensive. But let's do a little modeling here. Of course I'd raise it. Of course I'd raise it. Why not $1 million? See, this is the way I would pitch it. I would say, is your life not worth $1 million? And the patient's sitting there thinking, he's right. Anyway, let's go back to reality. The patient's obviously not paying a dime. Nobody could afford that. They might pay a copay, but even then, for cancer, typically they're not paying a dime. So what's the prevalence or incidence of this? 0.9 for 100,000 people. Well, it's 1 in 100,000. That's pretty simple. There's 350 million Americans, right? So if we divide by 100,000, we get 3,500 people get metastatic melanoma. That seems lower. It is fairly rare, I must admit that. But I thought it was a little bit higher than that. And again, it's very different for malignant melanoma, metastatic melanoma, regular old melanoma. Very, very different things. Most of the time, melanoma is caught, it's cut out, it doesn't spread. But the metastatic melanoma or advanced melanoma, it's a bit different. Okay, well, this is actually a good number. It says 8,000 people in the US die from melanoma each year. And given this is a fairly bad prognosis, something between 3,500 and 10,000 sounds about right. But let's just pretend you could treat all of these people with this drug. You're talking about 500,000 times, say, 4,000, 5,000 patients. Well, that's $2.5 billion of revenue. And you don't need to be a financial analyst to know a $3 billion market cap is very cheap. So you could be seeing a 10x in this drug if that's what happens. Now, I don't think they'll get every single patient. But think about it. If Keytruda doesn't cure you, and they said that even if you get a good response to Keytruda, you eventually will relapse. And we'll look at that data in a second. The Keytruda was the main thing. Before Keytruda, it was 6 months, you're dead, that's it. No chance. Pembrolizumab and Opdivo, nivolumab, they changed the game. So 7-year follow-up of KEYNOTE-006. This is what we're looking for. Phase 3, KEYNOTE-11006. Pembrolizumab versus ipilimumab. That's 𝗪𝗏. From Bristol Myers versus Pembro, which is Keytruda from Merck, and 𝗪𝗏 from Bristol Myers. This is not an Iovance study, so this is a long-term study. Median overall survival for Pembro was 32.7 months. So again, imagine going from 6 months to live to almost 3 years. Amazing. Huge breakthrough. That's why Bristol Myers did an amazing job there. Ipilimumab, not as good. 15.9 months, but still better than the old standard of 6. But it looks like on average, median PFS 9.4 months for Pembro. So it looks like for pembrolizumab, you get 9 months before your tumor grows. And it was a 56% ORR. Maybe we should just open the file. So what I'm trying to do here, if you can't put it together, is I'm basically trying to figure out how many people will be eligible for the Iovance drug. Here's what's called the Kaplan-Meier curve, and this is crucial. And all of this will be available on my GitHub, which I update regularly. And that's free of charge for all of you wonderful people. All right, so what does this mean? Do you want to be in the blue group or the red group? Blue group did better. And it looks like about half these people are going to have this really long response, but half of them are not. And so I'm going to use this data to try to construct a model that are available for this disease to be treated. So I'm going to go back in time a little bit. I basically say 3,500 people get diagnosed with metastatic melanoma every year. How many don't get cured? And then therefore, how many are available to treat? Now, normally you'd have to aggregate this over time, but in reality, if you don't respond to this, you're basically in big trouble. So I could actually say that maybe as many as 30% are available for treatment, 30 to 50%. And remember, we're only looking at the US here. The rest of the world is basically a third world country. So just one big third world country. So $900 million of sales if they got every one of those patients. They're not going to get every one of those patients. But maybe we try something like this, 70%. Well, you know what? It'll start with 20%, and then maybe it goes up and it caps out at 70. Revenue of 600 million, pretty good. Does that mean it should be a $3 billion company or more? I don't know. And are my numbers exactly right? Not quite yet. We still have some more thinking to do here. I probably want to review some of these references, especially the ones about 𝗪𝗪𝗔 and how it works. But this is really, really valuable. Let's see if there's some other pieces of this, and then we're going to move on to some other data. Melanoma opportunity alone seems to substantiate the market cap, and that's just melanoma in the US. So they're saying next quarter, they're going to do 53 to 55. That's a lot. Can't imagine their Proleukin revenue is going to go up very much, right? So it all has to be coming from 𝗪𝗏𝗪𝗔𝗐. That's only 80 patients, if you think about it. If you look at the price tag, you can actually tell how many people exactly took the drug. You can back into it by just dividing. So if they had 13 million in revenue, well, 24 people took the drug, 25 people, 78 people here. Still very large market they can address. There's probably a few thousand people that they could get this drug to. So, I don't know, let's say they add another 50 patients. And you can also think about how many centers they have lined up. So if they have 50 or 100 centers where you can even get this drug, then it sort of makes sense that each one would have a couple of patients or something like that, right? Cost of goods for this is going to be a little bit higher than normal, and you can see the core business would basically be profitable pretty quickly. And the nice thing about cell therapy is it never goes generic. Those pesky generics really hurt pharmaceutical companies, make our revenue go down a lot. I don't like that. And you can't really make a generic cell therapy. So that's great news for Iovance. This drug will be around a long time. So I thought they could get 20% of the market, which would be 180 million, and looks like it was not too far. 120 is maybe more realistic, but then the rest of this just adds up. I don't know what's going on with the Proleukin sales. I have to see what their relationship there sort of looks like. That's a Novartis drug, if I was not mistaken. Novartis bought Chiron a long time ago. Yeah, looks about right. Costs about $125 million to run an operation like this. That, between your sales force and your general expenses, that's basically correct. You get a little leverage if you sold the company to somebody else that already has a bunch of that infrastructure, but in general, that's kind of what you're going to get. Now, this is just a US company, interestingly, so would actually be beholden to whatever tax rate politicians decide. In foreign companies, you don't, or at least in companies that don't necessarily have complete US operations, which this one does, you could have some tax shielding. Okay, so let's say it matures very quickly, right there. What's interesting is I don't think this would shrink. And the discount rate's going to be fairly low. It's not going to be as low as Big Pharma, but this drug is FDA approved, which is basically a license to make money. Okay, so what is this worth? $3 billion, that's exactly what the market cap is. Funny, right? So instead of 3.2, maybe 3.6. And that's just melanoma. That's just the US. So it's probably fairly valued, yeah. Every time I do one of these, the market's so efficient. But, hold on. I'm assuming they're doing something else. They're not just doing this. Oh, wow, they're saying, well, they have guidance for the next 2 years. Isn't that funky? I didn't notice that. Do you see that? They're saying they're going to do 450 to 475 in 2025. I have them doing that kind of in 2026. So what are they smoking? Well, maybe Oh, I'm looking. Oh, you know what? This should be in 2024 anyway. Yeah. So in fact, maybe they're not smoking. Maybe that's right. They're gonna do 450 to 475 next year. That's juicy. It's really juicy. It's kind of ballsy to predict your growth curve like that. And so the question is, like, this must work for some other cancers too, right? It's not gonna just work for melanoma. They're basically saying that they had 25 in the second quarter, which makes sense. I'm glad that checks out because that's literally how much it costs. 515 times 25 is 13 million in revenue. So that's kind of cool that that works out exactly right. But he also said, or the company also said, they have 30 patients since the start of Q2, and this was in August. So that means that they're kind of on track for my number, which is 78. You think about it, they might even beat it, 70 or 80. But it could be higher too, it could be 90. But it's about right, that number's about right. 70% gross margins, what I guessed, more or less. They also think Proleukin will increase significantly, which is kind of interesting. I want to know what their Proleukin deal is. Approved 2/16/24, so a couple months ago, 6 months ago or so. They only have 70 ATCs, so you can only get this in certain places, which is a little tricky. You have to be at a top hospital to get this. So I think the most they can penetrate into the market is going to be even less than 70%. So there must be more patients than I think. 75% covered by private payers. 20,000 patients annually with the US and a few global markets. Okay, well, 20,000 patients would be $10 billion. They're not going to get that. I have a more reasonable number, 2,000 patients, which is only US. Maybe that doubles for the rest of the world. I'm not sure Europe's going to pay for this. UK, Canada, Australia, those countries are cheap too. Switzerland less so, but small country. Okay, so there's some opportunity here if you do it with checkpoint inhibitors. In fact, they want to do it with the new Bristol drug, relatlimab, or Opdualag. Well, so it's a smart company, man. They're trying to get all the patients. I don't know if that price is going to stick for first line. Here's the completely different subject. They're doing lung cancer. Now we're cooking, right? This could be a completely new market for them. Could be a 5x, 10x market for them. Let's see if there's anything real we can hang on to there. I don't assume anything until I see the data. It's tantalizing, but we don't know. Post anti-PD-1 non-small cell. Non-small cell is a pretty big market, many billions, even in refractory second line, third line market. So they're trying to go for approval here. Complete enrollment with data in 2025, BLA in 2026. They also have endometrial cancer. And then they have something called IOV 4001, which is PD-1 inactivated TIL. That's pretty smart. I'm guessing they would do melanoma, yeah. Oh, and this is actually in clinical trials already. I have a new IL-2. A lot of people try to make new IL-2s. I don't know if it's... All right, now there's IL-12. Looks like they can't even treat that many patients. They can treat enough. Looks like they can treat maybe $1.5 billion of revenue or something like that. Pretty useful, pretty interesting. I wonder, I guess they didn't do a conference call, or did they? Okay. It says here that the lung cancer data is 26% objective response rate. It's not bad though. I think it's about, I'm trying to think of a therapy that would fit in looking at this. So first line, you have anywhere from 30 to 45%. I have a new analyst joining me here. She might make some commentary. Okay, there's ramucirumab, which is a Lilly drug. And then you have nintedanib, which I always joked is a pretty funny Nintendo. Well, here's the 36% response rate. Another one, 32%. So this is tricky because second line is a big opportunity, but you are getting that range of results anyway. So getting a 30% response rate, 26% in this case, it's not that good. For monotherapy without side effects, it's pretty good. Somebody says docetaxel, Taxotere, is standard second line, but don't you give a VEGF too? give triplet docetaxel, carboplatin, and either Avastin or 𝗪𝗏. So it's not a slam dunk, I'll say that. But look, I mean, the more options you have, the better. It's a small cohort, 23 patients, so it's not really a gigantic amount of people there. And it's in wild type, so these are outside of the addicted tumors. 1 CR, 5 PRs, I don't think you can read too much into that. Yeah, I mean, it's certainly something. I just don't know if it's sort of tricky. You get the melanoma business. If you believe them, they seem to be good management. My numbers are too conservative. And I acknowledge they're conservative. And even though they're conservative, they give me a slightly higher stock price than even now, which is kind of in the margin of error. It's not really noteworthy. But they also have Proleukin, which I haven't been probably valuing correctly. I'm actually curious how they got Proleukin, so I'm going to look that up. Back to my Godel terminal. I'm going to just do Iovance, and I press backtick, which is the key next to 1. So when you press backtick on Godel, it takes you to the terminal. If I'm out here somewhere and I need to go to the terminal, I press backtick. Then I type in the ticker, Iovance. I can hit tab, or like if you're a Bloomberg user, you could hit F8, which is the way Bloomberg works for equity. And then I could do CF for company filings. And here I see all the company filings. I want to read the 10K because I want to see how they got Proleukin. Where did it come from? Just do a quick search. Ah, there it is. Oh, they bought it from Clinigen, 2023. Very cool. I wonder what that deal looked like. 212 million. A good deal. Wish I did that deal. Basically bought it for 4 times sales. And if it goes up because it's used with this drug, even smarter. I said it will go up significantly. So now you get to, and again, that's pretty conservative. I'm not giving them credit for any of the other cancers. It's not like, I mean, if lung works out, it's working out, obviously, to some extent. I just wonder, I guess you don't want to give this for chemo. You have to do a registration trial I mean, for some patients, they prefer this to chemo, perhaps, but they have to go through a myeloablative regimen anyway. I mean, you're going to get some market share in lung cancers. Maybe not, even if it's not that high. It actually, funny enough, the second-line lung cancer market is so much bigger than melanoma, but even a small market share in second-line lung would give you a pretty substantial revenue boost. So I think this is double, roughly. I'm just kind of spitballing here. But it's early days. Those lung cancer data is on 20, 30 patients. I mean, that's not perfect, 23 patients. But it is a big unmet need. I mean, eventually you fail first line. So I think it's a long. I would definitely own some. It looks like very smart management, very attractive kind of stuff. All right, with all that said, anything I can do for you guys while I'm got about a half an hour or so to do other things other than Iovance. Thank you for your patience in this very deep dive.